obviously I had to talk about, we got the Super Bowl coming up, well, in a few weeks, but we have the championship rounds coming up next week. Matthew Stafford just did a thing which was very weird and very crazy as a Detroit sports person to notice. I'm very hesitated to say fan when it comes to the Lions, but it is what it is. But how was that for you? How was that reaction to, are you one of those people who were you hurt by that, or were you just pumped for Stafford?
So, heading into the weekend, my opinion was kind of, I don't really care either way. Because on one hand, we have this guy who was, gave his all to the city of Detroit. It was a great guy, participated in a lot of charities. At the same time, I am a Lions fan. If they lose, I get a draft pick. But man, in the moment, you just felt like Stafford's legacy was in the line. And in that moment where he threw it to Cooper Kupp, I just found myself rooting for him. Like I said, heading into that, I didn't have an allegiance. I wasn't pro-Stafford, anti-Stafford, but I'll be honest, I was cheering pretty hard for him when he just Hail Married it up to, not Hail Mary, but just that long pass down to Kupp to set up the game-winning field goal when he was running up doing the clock it. It reminded me of that game-winning drive against Dallas a few years back. That just, I don't know, man. It felt good in the moment, I guess.
Was that what everyone was sharing on Twitter?
Yep.
That thing that made that rounds where he was doing in the Lions uniform? Yeah. Yeah. It's one of those things. It's very weird. And I'm gonna put that on the screen actually, because it's worthy of our time. But so it was good. You saw it sort of reminded me of Stafford at his best when he was doing all of that. Again, this Hail Mary tackles him right at the 10. And I was surprised that he could do it. It's because, again, you give him a good team and he does what he does. The weird thing for me, and because again, it's Matthew Stafford. And for all the stuff that he's been given and all the stuff, and I remember, what is it, who's that one guy that does, Colin Cowherd, who's very, very, if you've ever heard, Colin Cowherd, I'm terrible at jokes. If you've ever heard him talk about Stafford, that he's not a fan, right?
Yeah.
And, Colin Cowherd's, just, it's true, right? He puts the facts, put the facts on the table, right? And I'm not, a fan of him one way or the other, but he would say about all the time, and he'd come up with all these things about how if the game's on the line, you put the game in Stafford's hands, and Stafford doesn't come through. And I don't think that that's necessarily true. The interesting thing for me mostly was that I don't think that I learned anything new from this weekend watching him, in the sense of I know would I say that, and watching, and we'll get into it a little bit later on, but Patrick Mahomes and Josh Allen, I would say, and I don't know how you feel, but I would say that they are better quarterbacks than Matthew Stafford is. I don't think that, if you put Matthew Stafford on the Bills, maybe he has a harder time with what he's given. And I don't know, because the Detroit Lions have been the epitome of a failure for the last 60 plus years. So it's hard to say. But again, both things can be true where no, he's not, he's never been good enough to lift the Lions from nothing and disaster. Like Josh Allen has with the Bills, or Joe Burrow has now with the Bengals. That's something that's insane that I never thought I would see. And I don't know, just the Joe Burrow thing really rockets to me, because he's got something about it. And I don't think that Matthew Stafford ever did what Joe Burrow did this past weekend at all. And so again, I don't know, I just didn't learn some profound thing about how Matthew Stafford is this amazing dude. It's just same old.
What I kind of took away from the weekend, so there's always that question, is Matthew Stafford elite? It really depends how you define elite, right? Like you mentioned, I would consider the only two elite teams right now, or quarterbacks in the NFL right now, are Patrick Mahomes and Josh Allen. Those guys are at just a different level than everyone else. And you could even say Joe Burrow, like you said, he did something that Stafford couldn't do. He went into a franchise that historically struggled and immediately snagged 2 playoff wins for him. The thing is, I think what Stafford did prove was that he can be a franchise guy. Does he have an obscene amount of talent around him? Yeah. Is that defensive line crazy? Does he have a great head coach? Does he have one of the best receiving corps in the NFL? Yes, but the argument with Stafford in Detroit was always, is he a franchise guy? And to me, a franchise quarterback is a guy who can string together a couple of games in the postseason against some of the best teams in the league and get a win. So I get what you're saying. I wouldn't go as far to say he's one of the best in the league now, but he's certainly a franchise quarterback. I guess that was kind of cemented in my mind for me.
Interesting. Because again, and we haven't played the Orlovsky comments, and that's and I've always agreed with Dan Orlovsky in the sense of I felt bad for him when he was here, because I was so about to pin this on Detroit and the ownership and how just historically bad. I mean, you're talking about the worst sports franchise in the history of sports. I could not name another one. Just off the top of my head, there are some that come to mind, like Arizona Coyotes. What the fuck is that? But there's very few that sort of sink to that level, and I guess in football, it's one of those things where it's Arizona's almost doomed, whereas Detroit, could have succeeded, on multiple occasions. They had chances to succeed. The NFL out here helping them out, and I mean, you could say the same thing about the NHL to Arizona and vice versa and stuff like that. And how, and there's bad teams everywhere, but, so I've always felt bad for him. I was, out here on Matthew Stafford's pity party when he was here, this dude, just is doing everything for Detroit and nobody gives a shit about him. But yeah, I guess I see what you're saying. If you really could consider those elite guys, because I did that, what was it? There was this ESPN article about how now everything's out on the table with these young quarterbacks. You got Patrick Mahomes, Josh Allen, that was a good game. I wanted to get into the overtime rules in just a moment.